Hey guys, welcome to Code and Box Automation Lab. This is Shareful. In this lecture, we're going to see top 20 QA behavioral question and answer. Let's go. So first question, the difference between functional and non-functional testing. So we know the functional testing will ensure that applications function or features are working as expected. Like, during the sprint testing, that's your functional testing. Your regression is also part of the functional testing, but non-functional will ensure how well those functions are working. Like performance testing, as we know, it's a help you to test your performance of your application, or stress or load testing or security testing. Those are all non-functional testing. As you know, if you talk about security testing, so security is basically to check whether your application or the product is secured or not. Anyone can come to tomorrow and hack your system, or your login function, it's able to log in without any authorization. Those are the part of the security testing, and those are all like a security testing, performance, load testing, all are non-functional testing. Let's see the next. So next is your greatest challenges during regression testing. Okay, so test data, it's one of the big component for the big challenges for regression testing. So test data, it means like if the test data you need to change frequently before every regression, so it's not a fix. Example, like you need to do a login testing, and in a login testing, you have to create a user account every time, like brand new login. You create a username and password. So this username and password is not going to work for the next time. When next time you run this regression testing, is not going to work. So what do you have to do? So before you create the similar type of the username and password, you need to remove that username and password that you created by your last regression from your database, and then you can create the similar login test with the same username and password if you want to make it automated. Or every time you need to create a new username and password. So it means this data is very dynamic, which is it's a big challenge, and lack of for this for this kind of dynamic data, it's better to keep you that part of the automation as a manual testing. So test data is a big challenge in a regression. And then another one would be lack of test coverage, or improper selection of test cases that cause skip to find critical defects. So since the regression is the most or biggest number of test cases or test execution that's cover your end-to-end systems, so you will have a few hundreds of test cases. So there is a chance, there is a big chance that you are going to miss probably some of the very critical or very important test cases in your test suite. So so that's why test coverage is very important part in your test suite. If any chance you miss that some of the critical test coverage in your test regression test suite, this is, and that's gonna be lead it to the find some critical bugs in the production. So that's why this is another the big risks or challenges to ensure that you have a proper at least 100% test coverage for all of the critical high priority functions, like all of the critical bugs you found recently, all those things. Okay, so that's another challenges. So let's see the next. So next would be few key challenges that you face during the testing job. So this is very common question, like it's like pretty much everyone, all the QA, they face few of the key challenges. So you can summarize this like one of the things, one of the first challenges you can say last minute requirement changes in Agile. So in Agile, this is a very common scenario that a requirement will be changed end of the sprint. You will see. So as a result, like you have to adjust your test cases, test scenarios, or maybe you have to completely change your test scenarios, right? So this is one of the very key challenges. And then inadequate information on user stories. So in user stories, also in Agile, sometimes you will see this, it's not enough information in user story. It means not enough documentation in rigorous acceptance criteria. So that time, how we are going to resolve it. So for that, you will try to communicate as much as possible back and forth with the product owner, developer. They are the most knowledgeable person, especially the product owner, who have the most knowledge about the product overall. That comes directly from the end user. So try to get communicate with those stakeholder and get the information, overall scenarios that particular for that specific stories, and based on that you apply your best judge and create your scenarios. Like it's a like larger user, based on user expect, right? So create the scenarios that should be good for now, good for that time. So and that's a way you can handle it. And next challenge is like inadequate collaboration between tester and developer. Yes, tester and developer, there is a especially in a traditional software development methodologies, like there is lots of gap. We have noticed that, and it was a very common things, like the common challenges. But nowadays in Agile, it's now much more better collaboration happening between tester and developer, but it's still you will find there's a lot of gaps. Sometimes, especially developer, they think like tester is the last phase of the software development, so they don't need to know everything, all the the code, how it workings. But you have to bring up that attention to the developer and the dev team leads to make sure that a QA and developer they're working together, having collaboration from the very beginning of the development is phase, like probably from the grouping or the planning, definitely planning meetings, so that tester they know all the codes the developer is building, the workflow of the code, right? And eventually it will help whole Scrum team from finding some bugs in production. So that's another challenge, right? And the next challenge is test data. As I just earlier explained, is the test data is always the big challenge to having the real test data for testing. Like it could be sometimes you need a test data from the production, from your client environment. So there is some permission involved with this, right? And you have to go through all those things. So that's why test data is always another big challenge, to ensure that you have the proper test data for your testing. And environment availability, that's another problem. A lot of companies, they don't allow a separate environment for testing environment for a QA. They just say that okay, you are going to test on the dev environment, which is always interrupt your testing, because the developer, they are working always in dev environment. So for a QA, if you don't have the separate staging environment, this is always will be interrupt, and your testing will be always delay. On the other hand, and also sometimes assume that three different developer, they are working on three different story. So you need a trial or preview environment for testing for each and every story that the same time three developer working. So you can't test all the three different story in the same environment. So you need in that time you need a help from the developer. They can create a temporary preview environment just for testing for that specific story that individual developer working. So this is depends on more collaboration, and also depends on the process of software development for that specific company. So this is another challenging. And the choosing the right automation tools. This is a big challenge for a company. Like, I've seen this a lot of company, they choose some sort of automation tool, and then they started to build their automation library, and that probably when they're halfway there, they thought that they figure out that the tool was not the right as per their application, and also the language they selected was not appropriate also. So example, like if nowadays you will see there's a lot of most of the web application, they're based on React Angular, right? So which works more likely with the JavaScript based. So a lot of company, that's why they choose Cypress automation. But think about, like, if on the other hand, Selenium is a very dominating automation tool. It's been a long time, it's been a decade. So I have seen this a lot of company, they started with the Selenium, but after a few months later they realized, okay, we need to move on Cypress, so which is much better, appropriate in regards the language, in regards the flakiness test, controlling the flakiness test from compared to between Selenium and Cypress. So they moved to the Cypress. So that's the very important, that you are losing the business hour and your resources if you are not able to choose the right automation tool on the right time. Okay, those are the key challenges that you can say that's during the testing job we face. So next is, what are the different types of testing we perform in industry? So basically, this is test pyramid. Like, definitely unit test started with the unit test that we do nowadays, and integration testing. And integration testing plays very important role to ensure the integration, at least or minimum 2 component of the application is working together as expected. So API testing also included with the integration testing, you can say, and system testing or regression testing or end-to-end testing. And on the top, there is a acceptance testing too at the very end, before it goes to the release, after we complete the regression testing. So that's basically those are the main type of testing we're performing in industry. But as we earlier talked, there is a non-functional testing also we perform, like performance, security testing, load testing. Those are also another type of non-functional testing. It's also performed in our industry. Okay, so next is, what are drawbacks in Agile methodologies? So we know in most of the company nowadays, they are based on Agile methodologies. So your testing also is based on Agile methodologies, and there is lots of benefits in Agile, we know, if you are familiar with Agile methodologies. But there is some drawback. Number one, unclear requirements. Unclear requirements or lack of documentation is very common a drawback in Agile, because in Agile doesn't allow you tons of time. So as a result, most of the department, like the dev department, QA department, the product owner, they're all get very less time to make the clear requirement or large document in details. So this is one of the very big challenges and drawback in Agile, the lack of documentation. And the next one would be the last minute requirement changes. This is another very common drawback. It's frequently happen in Agile, since Agile allow end user to change their requirement anytime during the sprint, anytime during the development phase. So a lot of times you will see this, the end user, they change their mind after by seeing the preview, because since in Agile allow to deliver the product very frequently, probably it's end of the every sprint within a week, or every week, or every 2 weeks. So whatever the time frame or releases cadence, but the developer, they can see even before that as a preview, and that time after they're seeing the preview of the development, so they change their mind. Okay, yeah, looks like this button is not looks good, it maybe change the color, or maybe change from here to here, they change it. So when they change it, it means you have to, the developer have to change, and as per the the changing or adjust requirement, and tester, they have to change or adjust their testing. So this is a very very common, but it's a very kind of challenging drawbacks in Agile methodologies. Okay, so let's see what's the next. So next is the difference between defect, priority, and severity. What is the difference between the priority and severity? But it's based on defect. Okay, here is the tricky things. You will see the question could comes up, the difference between priority and severity. Then it's very clear the priority usually is a standard set by the product owner for a story, for the epic, and severity is a status set by the tester in regards the defect or bug they find. Okay, but here is a lot of companies, they don't use, they use the priority in both cases for the defect as well as for the story. So the question is based on the defect, defect and the priority and severity for a defect. So defect priority has defined the order, or you can say status, or you can say it's so it is defined the order in which the developer should resolve a defect. Okay, so this is it sets the status, or it's better to say it's order. Okay, so which one should resolve by the developer considering a defect. And defect severity is defined as the degree of impact that a defect has on the operation of the product. As an example, I can say misspelling. So misspelling is a defect, right? So what if we think about the priority? The priority, it's a misspelling is not something stopper, right? Your application is not something like it will stop your release or need to fix right away. It doesn't look good, but in regards to the priority, how early it should fix, the priority should be low. And also if you think about the severity as a degree, the impact is impacting the application, it's also low, because it's not a stopper, is not crashing your application, or is not stopping your application to use. So in that sense, the priority and severity is both is going to be the low. But on the other hand, if you think about, like, if you press like F5 on your keyboard and it crashes your application, so in that case, if you think about the priority for this defect, that the priority for this defect is still, it would be medium to low, because this is pressing F5 on your keyboard is not always happen. The user frequently is not pressing F5 unless this is one of the instruction to use the application. But if it's just randomly, nobody noticed that, all of a sudden this is one of the very bug inside the application. But the user is not necessary to always press F5. It is just all of a sudden user if they press this F5, it's crashed the application. So priority would be in this case to resolve the issue, it's medium to low. But if you think about the severity, the degree of impacting the issue is crashing the application, so it is a fully stopper of your application. So severity would be very critical. Okay, so this is the two example. It can make clear the idea or difference between the priority and severity. Let's see the next. So next, what is test plan and importance of a test plan? So this is a very, very common question, right? As a QA, you should know what is test plan and importance of test plan. So as per ISTQB definition, test plan is a usually called the large document describing the scope, the approach, resources, and a schedule of intended test activities. It is a blueprint to conduct software testing activities as the defined process. So test plan is nothing, is a document, or you can say it's a hypothetical blueprint or design concept where it's mentioned the scope of testing, like what function it could be test, what function is not possible to test, right? And an approach, what would be the testing approach, like manual test, are you going to apply the manual or automation, or what would be the approach, like from where you are going to start from, starting from point A to point B, right? Also, what would be your approach for testing? And resources, do you have enough resources in regards like your QA availability, in regards like your software and hardware you need, your test data, all those things is resources, and is scheduled to perform your testing activities and also deliverable activity, schedule. So all those things is mentioned in a test plan document. Okay. And so importance of the test plan, so by the definition you can easily understand how important it is. So but still, if you want to highlight some of the points, like it helps people outside of the testing team, such as developer, the product owner, customer, understand the details of testing, like how the testing is going to be performed. The test plan guides our thinking. It is like a the guidebook which needs to be followed, how we are going to perform our testing activities or manage our testing activities. Importance aspects like test estimation, test scope, test coverage, test strategy are documented in test plan. Like as we have seen that the documentation, test scope, test approach, resources, schedule, even estimation, like how long it might take, like the business hour considering, right? And a strategy. So all those things mentioned in test plan, so it can be reviewed by the management team, and they can confirm, okay, we all agree that and we're all in the same page as per the test plan. So then you will just continue doing your job. The whole team, everybody knows, the whole Scrum team knows that what's the QA team is doing. So that's the give you the overall the importance of the test plan. So next, what is test strategy? So in our last question, one of the part in test plan was like it's include also test strategy. So what is test strategy now? Like test strategy is a guideline, or it's a rule book to be followed to achieve the test objective and execution of the test types mentioned in the test plan. So it's a test strategy is a part of the test plan. Okay, it's guide you how you can implement that. You mention all the the testing objective that is mentioned in test plan. It deals with test objective, test environment, test approach, automation tools, and and the risks, and also risk is also mentioned, the risk analysis. Okay, so this is all about the test strategy. So risk analysis to make sure that it's not directly part of test plan, but it's a test strategy. So on the other hand, you can say the risk analysis also part of the test plan. So in a risk analysis, you will mention that during the testing, like what kind of risks you face is like not enough testing data, your environment was not ready, or environment was not stable. So those are the risky or blocker you face during your testing. And so you can mention in test strategy those things also mentioned, including how you can resolve those things. Okay, so that's about the test strategy. So let's see the next question. What would be your approach when you have a high priority release in short notice? It's happened sometimes. You will have you will see this within a short notice the release can go, it's called hot fix. So you found a very critical bug and it's have to be in a production within a day or next day. So that's the short notice the release can go to the production due to the hot fix. But other than any other reason, like you're probably your client wants some of the specific features to release earlier than your release cadence or release schedule. So whatever the reason, it's happened, and it is very normal case. That's it's a happen in our industry. So what would be your approach? if there is a high priority release is coming to the short notice. So in that case, since it's a short notice, you'll not able to perform all of your testing activities as you have the plan as per your team. So that time your best option would be run automation release suite. So if you have an automation or release already, so you can run it. This is very common, easy things that you can do. It's already said. Then run unit test. So unit test, it will also give you the more strength on your application, on your release, specifically each and every unit the developer building or they build on this release. So it will give you the more strength. And execute high priority manual testing, right? So high priority manual testing, so since you will not able to run or execute all the test cases for all the functions, even though you have a release release suite, probably your automation release suite doesn't have its cover all the system. Some of the part that you have to do in manually. So when you are think about the manual testing, do some exploratory testing specifically for high or critical the priority or functionality that you already know. So run the automation suite, run a unit test, and also do some exploratory testing based on the prior high priority function. So within a short notice, that's the guideline you can follow and can ensure that yes, the product can go to the release or not based on your output of the execution. So next question, what would be your reaction if the release date got changed? So as we have seen that the previous question, the release got release date got earlier, so it is changed also. So in that time, what would be your reaction? So we have seen that just earlier the last question, that what would be your approach. Now what would be your reaction? So as a QA, be open with your thought if you can deliver the project with QA sign off covering all the required test cases. So don't be nervous, just be open. Let the team know that within a short time we'll not able to perform all the test cases or all the test activities that we usually perform for regular release. So since the date got changed and we're not getting enough time, so there will be some testing will be compromised, and make it more specific. What part you are thinking that you will not able to execute, and make sure that we're all the team they aware about it, and then and after you execute that that your new as per your new update, if you find some critical bug that or a stopper, right, like application stopper or critical bug that can be really big threat for your release, be open and hold the sign off for the release. Don't give a green signal, and definitely you will explain to the team why you are thinking. You'll show the bug, and then explain the especially the product owner, but give you thought that as per your opinion the release cannot go because of these issues, right? And then after that the product owner or the upper management, they will make a call. But this is be your job, do your job as a QA. Don't compromise with your work or with your commitment. Okay, so next very common question, the difference between smoke and sanity testing. The smoke testing is a kind of software testing performed after software build to ensure the critical functionality of the application are working fine. It can be run a scheduled basis every night or could execute before any details or release testing. The purpose is to reject a badly broken application so that the QA team does not waste their time for release testing. So a high level example, a high level positive test for critical functionalities includes launching the application, it's a part of the smoke test, right? So usually, we know there's a lot of, nowadays as a company, they run even automation suite, automation suites on a schedule base. Maybe it's every night. So a smoke test can be run similar fashion. You can make it a schedule and make it automate and run every night. In the morning you can see that's up until your last build, how your application behaving, is that breaking any part or not, and also you can run it also even before you start your another release testing or regression testing. So if you find some bug or really breaking it's breaking your application, then you don't have to go through all the release testing, because you already found some of the bug, and then talk to the team and make sure that it's fixed first, and after that you can reschedule your release, right? So it will save you time. On the other hand, what is sanity test? So sanity is a kind of testing usually performed after receiving a software build with minor changes in code, or after fixing a bug in functionality to ensure new functionality or bug have been fixed and did not break other part of the application. So usually sanity test is performed by the developer as well as the tester too, usually when any bug is fixed or any changes happen to existing functions. So that time we perform sanity test just to ensure it's not only fixed that bug or not only fixed that specific function, but also it's not breaking other part of the application. So that's the key difference between smoke testing and sanity testing. So next question is like, what are the differences between ad hoc and exploratory testing? So this is also another very common questions, because we all know that we very frequently we say, okay, let's do ad hoc testing, let's do exploratory testing. So what's the actual difference? So ad hoc testing implies learning of the software before its testing. During exploratory testing, you will learn and test the software simultaneously. So ad hoc, it means you have a knowledge about your application, and then you are performing your testing based on your experience, but not following any script. Okay, you are just randomly testing. And exploratory, it's similar kinda, but it's only happen like you don't have enough knowledge about the application, but you are in the learning phase. So during the learning phase, you learn and test both simultaneously. Number 2, for ad hoc testing, it is necessary to know the software well. As I said, it is in ad hoc you have to know the application well. For exploratory, you have to gain your knowledge by doing the testing. So that's the exploratory testing. And number 3, ad hoc testing is not considered to be a testing approach, but exploratory is an approach, because that's why you will see a lot of times we more frequently we say let's do a exploratory testing. Okay, when you don't have enough time for the release testing, let's do exploratory testing. Or when you have some code change, or you found a high priority critical bugs, then we say okay, let's do a exploratory testing. So it is a approach, it is some sort of approach of testing, official approach, but ad hoc is not an official approach. Okay, so next question, what are difference between retesting and regression? So it is a very similar keyword. You will see the terminology retesting and regression is very similar, but there is a significant difference. The retesting is done to make sure that test cases which fail in the last execution are passed after the defect are fixed. This testing is a part of a defect life cycle. In a defect life cycle, a bug cannot be closed until it has been resolved by the developer and retested by the tester. So retesting is a part of the defect life cycle. Usually when a QA they find a bug, they create the defect and they assign to the developer, and as a QA, when you find a bug, you take the ownership of that bug. It means when a developer they fix the bug, you retest it again and ensure that the issue has been resolved or not. Okay, so here is the retesting comes to the picture. On the other hand, the regression, we know this regression is a testing of the software when a new code has been deployed or there's a release is going to be production. Before that, before it goes to the production, we perform release testing or regression testing, or when the new code inject to the application, that time we perform a regression for the whole system, for end-to-end system, to ensure that the system is working with the new code and is not breaking any other part of the module or application. Okay, so that's the regression. So next question: what are the daily activities you are doing as an automation developer, automation QA? So a lot of this answer is basically based on Agile industry. So as an automation developer, you're very scheduled. Every day you do some specific jobs. One of the common thing you run is smoke suite and sharing the update with all the stakeholder as per application's health. So you may schedule a smoke test like every night, and then in the morning when you're office, your first things to see the result, and you update to the appropriate stakeholder through your Slack channel or by email or whatever you say. Okay, so that's one of the very common thing you do. And beside that, you work on manual and automation testing for the stories during the sprint testing what's been assigned to you. That's another continuous things you do. And another common things you do, your daily part of your daily activities is like work on the defect assigned to you and take ownership of it. Okay, so those are the very common activities, like minimum activities you do during your day-to-day work. Next, how do you handle testing if you don't have enough documentation? It's one of the challenging part, how you handle this testing, right? And in Agile it's happened. So the solution would be like first you will try to understand and explore, gather the knowledge and explore the application to come with the best user flow and apply your own judgment to define testing scenarios. As a QA, you will not just wait and see and just waste your time, because in Agile the time is very important fact. So that's why you will try to understand, explore the application as much as you can, and then based on that, based on user flow, like user based journey, and then apply your own just to define some of the broader, wider test scenario. Then next point would be, but still you will try your best to communicate with the product owner, developer, to get the more idea about the missing documentation part or missing scenarios, so that you have the overall, your judgment gets more appropriate. Okay, so this is the 2 points. These 2 points or activities can help you, or action can help you to resolve this the missing documentation or information challenges. Next question: what would be an approach to build your regression if there is no regression? Okay, so assume that you are the primary QA, and you are the first QA being hired to a company, or say maybe startup company, and there never been the regression, they never build any regression suite. So what would be your plan? How we are going to build a regression suite? So first, find out the core functionalities and include all the testing flow to cover core parts of the application first. That would be after you get to know the application. Okay, so this is your first things to do. And the next, do risk analyze, and find the common areas where bugs are found frequently, and make sure to add test cases to cover all those bugs, and make a continued best practice to add all the newly bugs that will be discovered as critical and high severity bugs to the release testing. Okay, number third, include the test cases for new functionalities. So it is a continuous process, like include the test. So during your sprint, definitely new functionality will be built, and for the new functionalities definitely you are going to write test cases and make sure you added those test cases part of your regression suite, and update the test cases for code changes or fixing the existing modules. So if the existing modules get changed, our code get changed, so definitely your test scenario related test cases will be changed, should be changed. So this is another continuous part of your of your regression suite as a maintenance. Okay, and the last would be include rest of the low priority test cases eventually as a continuous process. So as I said at the first point was like finding the core functionalities and include all the testing flow based on your core part. So definitely other than this core part there is some lower priority functionalities. So and after you cover all the rest of the four points, this is another continuous things of that you are starting to build your test cases for the low priority functionality too, because a regression it's the biggest test suite. It will cover your end-to-end application, end-to-end system. So it means high priority and low priority, all of the function have to be part of the regression suite. So you have to confirm that you are also later on in second phase or third phase, later on you are also writing the test cases for low priority functionalities too. So that would be your approach to build your regression. Next is what is the first action you perform as a tester when you see the application throwing an error? So when you find an error, when you just working or testing your application and you found some error, or performing some testing, you got some error. So what are you going to write the file a bug right away? No. So there is just some very common sense, the common testing approach that you can apply before you file a bug. So here is the very common things that as a tester you can do. So check the console through the developer tools for any JavaScript error. So it means, so example, let's go to our code inbox automation lab. So assume that this is your application, and then you are going to make sure that's example, if you let's go to the logging function, and here, okay, so assume that you try to log in and you found 404 page not found error. So what are you gonna do? So here is the thing. So go to the inspect, it's a developer tools, and then there is a console over here, and here you will find some JavaScript related errors. So example, I'm going to giving some random invalid username password. Let's see. You see, you'll find some related JavaScript bug over here underneath the console, over here, or here you can see DevTools failed to load source map. So this is some sort of JavaScript system error. So you can copy the whole error and then make a note. Okay, so that's one part. And the second part, you go to the network. Underneath the network, let's try again, and then you can see underneath the network, so those are some the request, and then each and every request. So whatever the request is, select one of the the request. Here you can see the status code. You can find for each and every request. For this request, the login request, you found right now status code is 200. Maybe if it's a code, if saying is a page cannot found, it will give you another status code like 404, 402, 41. So that's status code. So you get, take this status code, I mean the response for your request as a network response, right? So take this node as a, like, what was the network response for your request, the status code. You can get that one too. So this is the one I explained. And then verify your application log to understand the actual issue. So that's another part, so every application, they have the log, right? So you can check your log activities and ensure that what's exactly the issue is a marking on your the log document for your application for this specific action. So make all the notes and points, and then you can share with it to developer or the product owner. Basically it's the developer, or product owner, and share and say that, hey, this is the points I'm getting because when I was trying to log into the application. So and then based on probably you will find there is just some server issues, so server is not responding, that's why it's not actual bug. So you will see that you will able to save some filing some the fake bug, right? So and then if the developer or the product owner comes give you advice, oh, this looks like a real bug, can you file a bug, then you can file a bug. Okay, so that's that. So it means you are verifying couple of times that this is whether it's a real bug or not. If you find the real bug, even though it's a real bug, at least check twice, and take the screenshot if it's a real bug. When you can easily take this screenshot for the console, network, as well as the application log. Take all the screenshot and share with the appropriate stakeholder, like the developer or the product owner, to ensure this is not a server issue, this is a real bug. Okay, so that will be the your some initial approach before you come file a bug. Okay, so let's go to the next question would be, how do you define test cases as not ideal candidates for automation? So in a real life, you will not able to convert all of your test scenario to automation. So automation will not able to done end-to-end release testing or end-to-end regression, end-to-end application. It's not possible. This is the real fact. So then how you're going to identify which test cases whether is you're going to put as a part of automation or not. So here is the 3 points. Number 1, tests are highly dependent on test data which are frequently changes. Earlier I already explained the test data, how important it is, but it is also challenging maintain your test data if your test data is changing every time, right? So that time it is really difficult to make that specific test cases or scenario to make it automate, because every time you are going to do the automate, you have to update your test data, you need to change your test data. So it means there is some manual integration you need to maintain or update your test data. So it's better not to do that scenario for automation. Keep it aside for manual testing for that part. Next, test which cannot be automated due to technical challenges. Sometimes you have some technical challenges. I mean technical challenges. It means, say example, you want to do a login testing, but before when you enter your username password, and there is a there is a security test, like it's sent on your device, on your mobile, there is a confirmation code, and you have to enter that code, and this code is not fixed, as you know, right? This is the one-time password or one-time code is generated every time you try to log in. So it means the code will come to your device, and you have to manually enter that code to log in successfully. And since that code is not fixed, it is a dynamic, you don't know, it's a random code generated every time, right? So this is happen you'll see all the financial application, like banking application, this is the double, for the due to the security reason, we need to add that layer, right? So this is like it is not, in this kind of scenario, is not possible to do automated, because it is a technically very challenges. It's pretty much impossible. So you can keep that kind of scenario as a part of your manual testing. And the number 3, tests which are unstable due to the complex nature of application. This is another, if your application, say you have a mobile application, and for the registration as a new user, when you click on the button on your mobile application to register new user, it takes you to the browser, like Chrome browser, right? So switching from mobile framework to the web browser, it's a very complex nature. It's not easy for your automation to move back and forth from mobile framework to the web framework. It has a different type of framework, different type of technology. So it's not very easy, or it's not very stable, back and forth to go switches from mobile framework to the web application. So this is very unstable, or complex nature of the testing. So this kind of scenarios or flow can be part of the manual testing, or cannot be part of your ideal candidate for automation. Okay. Next question: if you file a bug and developer says it is not a bug, what do you do? It's not a matter of like you will start to argument. So it's better you inform your team lead and contract with the product owner to make the requirement clear and confirm whether it's a bug or not, because the product owner have the most knowledge about the application. So product owner can confirm, after your logic, all the provens, like a screenshot, everything you share, then product owner will give you the final decision. Well, yes, it is a bug or not. Okay, so go through the product owner would be your best person to contract in regards this problem to resolve. Next question: what's the most interesting bug you found recently? Okay, so this is very interesting but very common question that usually we ask during the interview. So I will bring up this. So you have to think about based on your recent experience. So here is a couple of examples I'm going to share with you. Like one is like maybe e-commerce website, which is Walmart. Another one is digital, the health application. So let's talk about the Walmart one. So let me give you the scenario first over here. Let me see if I can make it bigger. Okay. So first, assume that you tested or your recent experience based on one e-commerce website or maybe Walmart. So here is a scenario 1. So Mr. X, he placed an order, and this is the order number ABC 1 2 3 4 5 6. So then Mr. X easily can go to his account and order page, and he can see his there is a link for his recent order, and if you click on the link, it takes to the another new tab, and it's with a new URL. You can see the URL is walmart.com/order/ this is specific order number. So he can see his details order through this link. So and then you copy that, you copy this order details link, then you log out from this user, from Mr. X. Then you log into another user, his name is, assume that Mr. Y, and open another tab and paste the same the old the order the link, order page link that was belongs to Mr. X, like walmart.com. This is the link, and you placed on a new tab for this link, and then if you see, I found that it was able to see the order details, which is very unusual, and it's a security issue because you are currently logged into a different user, which is Mr. Y, but still you are able to see the order details which is belong to Mr. X. So this is very kind of like interesting scenarios, interesting bug, but very high priority security issue. Okay, that's one example you can tell. Or whatever the based on your recent experience, I'm just giving you an example. And then another example, considering digital health application. So digital health application, if you're familiar with this kind of application, there is a two client over here. I mean, two parties. One is like a patient, another one is a doctor or provider. So assume that Mr. X is a patient, and he sent a request for get care or consultation request, and then Mr. Y is a doctor. He received or picked up that request, and then they both started to doing some chat. And Mr. Y, he found that the patient needs a specialist doctor. Okay, so he hand off the consultation for a specialist doctor, and then so now it's this request, it's go back to the in a QA where specialist the doctor, say Mr. M, is picked up that request or consultation, and they started to doing the chat. But interestingly, like Mr. Y, the previous doctor, he's still able to see their conversation between the Mr. M, the specialist doctor, and the patient, which is very serious privacy issue, because Mr. Y is not supposed to see the conversation with the patient, for the patient with a different doctor. So in regards the digital health application, this is a serious privacy issue. Okay, and it's only happen as long as Mr. Y is still keep open that chat window. If he close that window, it doesn't happen, he's not able to see. But if he's leave it open, it's still the old chat session is still somehow he's automatically inject to the new chat session. So this is a interesting, serious, but it's a serious bug. Okay, so this is another example that I found one of my recent experience, like digital health testing the digital health application. So you brought up your scenario okay, based on your recent experience. Okay, the last one. So this is the very last very common question. How do you ensure whether enough test cases have been created to test a product? How do you confirm like the test cases you have been created is enough for a release testing, for a release for a product to go for the release? So your answer should be that you have to confirm that your test coverage, so by number one would be the by test coverage metrics, which is at least 100% test coverage. So your test coverage will confirm that your test cases was covering at least 100%. That means each business requirement or a story will map to at least one test scenario or more, right? So when you write the test cases for a specific story, you should have at least one test scenario for each and every story or every requirement, or that's at least, or could be more. Based on this scenario, you're supposed to create a test cases for positive and negative coverage. So that's why for one scenario you should have more than one test cases, so the positive and the negative, right? So that's why I'm saying that 100% test coverage, it means like at least one scenario for one requirement. But your test cases will be divided more based on positive and negative thought. And then also there is another matrix, is a very famous matrix we use in QA industry, which is the traceability matrix, to check whether those test cases are covering all the requirement specification or not. So traceability matrix is a very famous matrix in QA industry that QA, end user, the product owner, everybody use to ensure that you have the test case coverage for a specific requirement. Okay, so most of the test management tools nowadays, like you can talk about like Zephyr or X-Ray that comes with the Zira or TestRail, they all have a traceability matrix features that can help you to manage and ensure that you have the test coverage, appropriate test coverage mapping with the requirement. So this is your answer should be like this. So traceability matrix is the very key word that will look for on your answer, as well as maybe said that the test test coverage matrix, that's another one. So this is the two keywords you have to put on your answer. Okay, so that's all pretty much. So the most of the very commonly or frequently asked question during the interview as a QA behavioral question. Okay, so that's all for today. Thank you so much. Have a good one. Bye bye.